Hi everybody, it's me Mark with Mark's Issues with Archie Comics. Well, today is Thursday, so I'm going to be doing part 3 of my Golden Age unboxing videos. I have 3 books for you this week, the last one being one of my grails, and then the next Thursday I will have the big grail for everyone to see. I'm very excited about that one. So to start us off, I have Archie number 53. This came out in November, December of 1951. It is a Bill Vigoda cover. This is considered a taillight cover from what I was told. Obviously, headlights are headlights and taillights are taillights. I'm not going to explain that in too much depth because there are, always kids watching. To me, this is like the Betty's Diary prequel, because there was another one that was a Betty's Diary that wasn't Betty's Diary. And a lot of people consider that book the prequel to Betty's Diary. But to me, this is it, because you can see her here. She's writing in her diary, "Dear Diary, I had the most wonderful day today. Archie was with me all day. I wonder if I did wrong by telling him Veronica was coming down with the measles. There's nothing wrong with that. She wanted to spend the day with Archie with no Veronica." The first story in this book is called Obey That Impulse, where Mr. Weatherby, or Mr. B as most people call him, the B, Dalton comes up with a mantra or a motto type thing, and Mr. Weatherby decides he's going to institute that motto throughout the entire school. But in the end, it ends up having bad results, so that plan didn't work out for him. The next story in here is called Stamp Vamp, where Betty is a stamp collector, and Archie wants to, learn about stamp collecting. So she gets, well, actually, she's not a stamp collector at the beginning. Archie tells her he wants to learn about stamp collecting, so she becomes interested in stamp collecting, and she goes through all the rigmarole to be a good stamp collector and find all these good stamps. And then Archie tells her the only reason he really wanted to learn is so that he could go over to Veronica's and look like he was an experienced stamp collector. The next one is it's called The Drawbacks, where Archie joins the football team. That story is by Sam Schultz. And then the one after that is called Double Trouble, where Archie again has set 2 dates at the same time with 2 different girls, of course, one being Veronica and one being Betty. That story is also by Sam Schwartz. There's Slump Chump, where the B, Mr. Weatherby, he's got to do a speech, and he's very nervous. So he takes lessons on how to relax from Jughead. And then there's a story in there called What's Cooking, where Archie's dad tries to cook dinner. And then there's a story, the last story is called So What, but not like SOWHAT, it's SEWWHAT. And that's a story where Archie is trying to once again fix a dress for Veronica. And that story was by Sam Schultz too. The next book I have is a big book. It's not the biggest book of the last 3 books I have, but this is the big book. This is, let me adjust my notes. I do take notes now because I do forget things. This is Susie number 51. Very, very classic cover. This came out in the fall of 1945. And this is a Al Fagaley cover. Now, Technically, this is not an Archie comic. It is an MLJ comic, as you can see there. An MLJ magazine. But I consider MLJ books Archie books. I know a lot of people are going to complain about that because MLJ also included books like The Shield, The Black Hood, all the old superhero books. But I consider those guys Archie characters too. I've always, even though they were, I mean, at one point all the Archie heroes were published by Red Circle, which I still consider an Archie comic, even though it was a different name. They were put out by Impact Comics, by DC. Same here, all the new takes on the same heroes, but I still consider that a Archie characters. Like I said, the cover on this one is by Al Fagley. The first story in this one is called Susie Helps Out. She gets a job at a department store, and if you know Susie, it turns out to be a total fiasco. And that story art is by Harry Shahle, Sahle. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correct. The second story in here is called The Maid, where obviously Susie becomes a maid. The next story in here is called I forget, something Bonneville Blues, I believe. Where Susie gets a cow and she brings it home and she's trying to hide it from the landlord. Now, I used to have a girlfriend that had a cat in an apartment where they weren't supposed to have pets, and that was hard enough. I can't even imagine trying to hide a cow from your landlord. The next one's called Chasing Butterflies, which I guess was Susie gets a job chasing and catching butterflies in butterfly nets for some scientist that hires her. Then there's a Ginger story in here where she is doing, she's reading in her diary and reminiscing about her very first date with Tommy. And that story was done by Virginia Drury, Drury. But the story is actually signed Ginger. I don't know if this was a time where a lot of the female writers and artists took like pen names because they weren't very popular, and that's why she signed it Ginger or not, but I found that kind of interesting. And then the last one is called Bringing Up Baby, and that's a Susie story where she's hired as a nanny, or not nanny, I guess back then they called them a governess, and she's got to take care of this very rambunctious little baby on their yachting vacation. But this is the very classic cover. It's really cool. I'm glad I got it. There's the back. It's got that plastic see-through backing boards that I've discovered. And now to the big book for this episode. This is a pretty big book. This is actually the first one I've ever seen in hand, or at a convention, or at local comic shops or whatever. I think a lot of that has to do with Archie not being very popular, so a lot of the dealers at conventions don't bring their Archie books. But this is Archie's rival, Reggie, number 1. This came out in 1950, and it's a George, how do you pronounce his name? George Fries cover, and he also did all the stories on the inside. The first story in this one is the Ferocious Femmes, which is a really good story. I enjoyed it. It's Reggie becomes the coach for an all-girl football team, and for the time period in the story, it's really funny. The second story is called The Hapless Hazer. Excuse me. Where Reggie is, he's messing with the freshmen. And they ended up turning the tables and getting Reggie in trouble with Mr. Weatherby. Then there's the Jokers, which is the third story. And that's just Reggie, like a day in the life of Reggie in school, where he's doing practical jokes on everybody. And then there's a story called Screen Test, where there was a misunderstanding on the phone, and Reggie ends up being a screen. He's put to work as a screen painter instead of what he thought he was going to do, which was hanging out with Veronica the entire day. And Reggie gets mad because Archie ends up with Veronica in that story, as in most Reggie stories. And then the last one is Happy Days. Happy Days is a story where Reggie hypnotized himself. But it's a really cool cover. The book's in really good shape. Veronica's sitting there. She goes, "I wonder why Archie didn't show up for our date, Reggie." And Reggie's like, "He's going to be tied up for a while, Veronica. I'll take you." And you can see Archie's all tied up inside the phone booth. And for those of you that are too young to remember, back in the old days, telephones were inside boxes, inside stores or restaurants. So you would have privacy when you talked on the phone, because everyone didn't want to hear your phone conversations out loud like they do nowadays. But that's my big book for this episode. If you've made it this far, please like and subscribe. Please share. If you have any questions or comments, of course, leave them in the questions and comments. I look forward to reading and answering everybody's stuff. I'm waiting in the mail for some books still to come for my next Tuesday book review. I had a request for a book, and I'm waiting for some variant covers to come in that I had ordered. If I can't do that, I'll show maybe my haul from the comic book store. But that's my that's episode 3, folks. Remember, enjoy your books, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.